The most powerful production car by Mazda ever built. Surely that has to be a CX-7 or maybe even a Mazda 3 MPS. But nope, it's not. It's in fact this car standing next to me. This is the Mazda CX-60, and as you can see, it's a pretty family-friendly SUV, but it is in fact their most powerful car they have ever built. And it is also their first plug-in hybrid they have ever built, so it's also pretty fuel efficient. Now, as you may know, Mazda is a pretty quirky brand. They basically do everything different compared to the competition. Take for example their first fully electric car, the MX-30, which is a pretty funky looking SUV with suicide doors. But in the near future that car will even get more funky, more quirky, because in the near future you can get it with a rotary engine that works as a range extender for the battery. And there's really only one brand that would even consider putting a rotary engine in a fully electric car, and that is of course Mazda. And this car next to me, the Mazda CX-60, their first plug-in hybrid, is also a little bit different compared to plug-in hybrids from the competition. First of all, it is their most powerful car, like I said in the introduction. This car is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder producing 327 horsepower and 500 Newton meters. Now, if this is also the fastest Mazda out there, I will tell you in a couple of minutes when I take the car out for a drive, and then I will also tell you more about the range of this plug-in hybrid. But first, let's do a little tour around the car and look at the design. But first, let me quickly mention the competitors of this car. The CX-60 will rival cars like the Mercedes-Benz GLC, the Audi Q5 and the BMW X3. Now, Mazda doesn't like to call this a premium SUV, although they really want you to think that it is. And in fact, it is a premium SUV, but it also rivals cars like the Kia Sorento and the Hyundai Santa Fe, which are now also plug-in hybrids. And it also rivals another premium SUV from France, the DS7. Then let's talk about the design of the car. You can immediately recognize this car as a Mazda. There's not a lot of hard lines, basically just a lot of soft curves. And you get this really long bonnet here in the front, which makes this car look extra sporty. The bonnet is extra long for a reason. Now, like I said, at the moment in this plug-in hybrids, you get a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, but in the near future you can also get a 6-cylinder. And not just a petrol 6-cylinder, but also a diesel one. The petrol will be a 3 liter 6-cylinder and the diesel will be a 3.3 liter 6-cylinder. Now at the front you get the familiar Mazda grille, and you also get these daylight running lights that have this L shape like with many Mazda models. Now, what is a nice detail is that the L-shaped daylight running lights basically run out of the headlights and into the grille. On this plug-in hybrid version of the CX-60, here on the right side you get the charge port door, which may be the biggest charge port door I have ever seen on a plug-in hybrid or a fully electric car. It's absolutely massive, and it doesn't have to be this big, but here it is. The back-end design also is, well, very much like a normal Mazda. You get the what Mazda likes to call Kodo design language here all around the car. So again, not a lot of hard lines and a lot of soft curves. Now, what is pretty interesting on this plug-in hybrid is that you get a lot of cargo space. Now, usually in plug-in hybrids, the battery pack is located just under the cargo space, or they move the gas tank to the back to make room for the battery pack under the back seats. But Mazda has decided to put the battery pack in the only place where it should be, namely in the floor in the car between the front and the rear axle. And that means that you get plenty of cargo space here, 570 liters, and if you fold the rear seats down, you get 1150 liters, which is not bad for a plug-in hybrid. It's at least 20 liters more than the competition. And what makes this car also a better plug-in hybrid than most plug-in hybrids is the fact that it can tow up to 2500 kilos, which is pretty exceptional for a plug-in hybrid. The car also has 4-wheel drive, so if you need a little bit more grip during towing or when you go on a skiing holiday, the CX-60 will help you out. The CX-60 is a pretty decent sized car. It's 475 centimeters long and the wheelbase is 290 centimeters. Now I myself am 180 centimeters long and I've got plenty of leg room here, and I've also got plenty of headroom. But if I would be a bit longer, I would hit my head with the roof. Now of course you got the panoramic sunroof here that does eat a little bit into the headspace. but it does look pretty cool and makes the car feel a lot more roomier. So I would definitely go for that if you got some extra cash to spend. Now here in the back on this particular version that I'm driving right now, you got heated seats, you got 2 USB-C ports, and you even get a normal household socket here in the back as well, which is particularly handy if you got somebody with a laptop here in the back. In the middle you get an armrest with 2 cup holders, you got 3 headrests, and you can even fold down this rear middle part of the seat. Now just a minute ago I talked about the premium aspect of this car, and you can really notice it here in the back that they really try to make this a premium feeling SUV, because you even get soft materials here in the door panels here in the back, some aluminium details and some nice stitching, which really makes this car feel, well, like a pretty expensive SUV even here in the back. Here in the front seat area, you also get that premium feeling that you get in the back. You got a lot of soft materials on the dashboard, and especially this really thick top layer that you get. Now standard, you get a 12.3-inch infotainment system here that works just a little different than what you're probably used to. After all, this is a Mazda. You can't use it as a touchscreen. You can touch it all you want, but nothing will basically happen. You got this round dial here in the center console that you have to use to control the infotainment system. Now, the infotainment system is really easy to operate. The menus are very clear and, well, very basic. So it's actually really easy to operate it here with this round dial. I do have to say it does take a little bit of time getting used to this system, because you're just used to operating all the screens as a touchscreen nowadays. But after a while you get the hang of it, and it's actually pretty pleasant to operate the system. Now luckily there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to operate through this infotainment system, because there's also a lot of physical buttons down here. So physical buttons for the climate controls, for the heated seats, a heated steering wheel. It's actually pretty pleasant to see a lot of physical buttons in a new car, because it's just way easier to use than operating a screen while driving. Now there's one particular function on this car that I really like, and that's the function that can recognize who's behind the steering wheel. Now when I first got into this car, I had to set a profile. I had to tell the car what height I am, my length. I had to tell the car what seating position I prefer, how I like the mirrors to be, what I like the temperature to be, and I could even tell the car what radio station or even Spotify list I like. Now the next time that I get into this car, there's a little camera next to the infotainment system that will recognize me. It will recognize my height, and then it will set all those things to my settings that I like. So we'll set the steering wheel to the right height, it will set the seating, the mirrors, the Spotify list, the temperature, and that's just, well, pretty premium, I would say. I've never seen any function like that on any other car. Now this car also has a lot of drive modes, for example EV, normal mode, off-road mode and sport mode. Now I can imagine you want to try out sport mode now and then, because this is after all the most powerful Mazda ever. Now if you do that, you can actually find out that this is actually a pretty sporty car. If I press the accelerator, the engine is pretty quick to respond and actually sounds pretty decent. Now it's a rather big engine, 2.5 liter. That is pretty big, especially here in Europe, and especially for a plug-in hybrid. So in sport mode, the car will do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, like 0 to 60 miles in 5.8 seconds, which is definitely not bad for a plug-in hybrid. And the top speed is 200 kilometers an hour. Now in sport mode, obviously the gas engine is working, but also the electric motor to get that total combined power of 327 horsepower. Now obviously, if you don't get a battery charged up, the electric motor won't work. So if you like to have a bit of fun behind the steering wheel, you need to charge up that battery pack. If you got the battery pack topped off, the car will do 63 kilometers of pure electric range, which is fine. It's not insanely impressive for a plug-in hybrid nowadays, but it is definitely not bad. Now of course in reality you're probably not going to make 63 kilometers, but around 50 kilometers should be okay. And if you're only driving around the city, you will actually get that 63 kilometers. You may even get a bit more, again, only if you stay within the city limits. Then let's start pricing. Now, of course, depending on where you live, the car will have a different starting price. In the UK, it will start around £44,000. In Germany, around £47,000. Now, as you can probably tell by my really thick accent, I am from the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, this car will start from €51,000. Later, Mazda will also be introducing, like I said, regular gas and diesel engines, but the pricing is not out yet on those cars. And they will also be introducing a 7-seater version of this car, which will be a bit different. It will be called the CX-60, but there's not much information out there on that car. But just so you know, there will be coming a 7-seater later on. So that's it for this video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next video. Yeah, that doesn't sound bad.